I'm here with Tim Mayleben, who is the CEO of Aastrom Biosciences. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about Aastrom. This is a company that obviously has a lot going on. Tell us about your lead candidate.
Yeah, so our lead product is called Ixmilus LT, and it is a patient-specific, expanded multicellular therapy, and we're using that to treat patients with severe chronic cardiovascular diseases. We have started a phase 3 program in critical limb ischemia, which is our lead indication for that program, but we also have a second program in dilated cardiomyopathy, which is also a severe chronic cardiovascular disease, but it is an orphan disease. There's less than 200,000 patients here in the US with that condition.
So you take the autologous stem cells from the patients, which means it's their own stem cells. You have very little chance of rejection or any of these other problems that we see with stem cell therapies.
Yeah, so so our therapy, as you noted, is we start with the patient's own cells, and we like to say that we eliminate any risk of rejection. The nice thing about our therapy as well, you can treat patients more than once. So if a patient does need to be retreated, you can treat them because you don't have the risk of rejection that you do with some of the other therapeutic cellular therapies. And we've treated now more than 200 patients, and we've never had a treatment-related serious adverse event or obviously any rejection of the therapy as well. And it makes intuitive sense simply because we're starting with the patient's own cells.
One of the things that just happened recently is you guys did a tremendous financing with very good terms. Matter of fact, you were telling me that many of the investors, the investment community, is sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop. What's the catch here? What's going on? A couple of good things to point out there. One, I think it's very positive for biotech that we're seeing these types of deals coming through. But at the end of the day, the investors obviously took and did a lot of homework and said, what we're seeing here with Aastrom is real science with real results. Can you tell us a little bit about how that financing came to be or what's going on with it?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I think it starts with the relationship. We started building a relationship with this particular investor, Eastern Capital, almost 18 months ago. We got to know them, went to visit them. They did a lot of diligence, as you noted, and really got to know us, got to know our team, and got to know our technology as well. And so we built this relationship with them over the last 18 months, and that culminated in the release of our phase 2B data at the American Heart Association meeting in Orlando last November. And the American Heart Association meeting is the premier cardiovascular meeting, scientific and medical meeting of the year worldwide. And so the fact that our data was presented there gives you some idea of just how significant and meaningful our data was. And we were presenting on the very first day of that conference. So after they had seen that data, their interest really intensified, and they approached us about the idea of making a substantial investment in Aastrom because they believed in our technology, they believed in our team, and they believed in our clinical data, and our prospects for the future looked very bright to them, and I think to us as well.
Obviously, the CLI program is your lead candidate in the pipeline. Tell us a little bit about some of the other programs that you've got.
So we're a small biotech company, so we feel like we have to focus. So we've really focused on 2 programs. As you noted, the critical limb ischemia program, which is in phase 3. We started the phase 3 program now, and we expect to see results from that in the second half of 2014. But not too far behind there, we have a program in ischemic dilated cardiomyopathy patients. This is an orphan designated disease here in the US because there's less than 200,000 patients suffering from this condition. But for these patients, there aren't any other treatment options, or not any good ones anyway. Heart transplant, there's only a couple of thousand of those done in the US each year, and they can cost upwards of $750,000, and the patient is on immunosuppressive therapy for the rest of their lives. The other option that's out there today is an LVAD, a left ventricular assist device, which is a device that's placed in the heart to help pace it or take pressure off the heart. But again, there's only a few thousand of those done each year, and the mortality rate associated with those LVADs is still about 50% at 2 years. So clearly there's an unmet medical need in these patients with ischemic dilated cardiomyopathy, and we think a regenerative medicine approach, a cellular therapy approach, which can turn back the clock on this ischemic tissue in the heart and make the heart more healthy like it used to be, we think that's the right approach to help treat these patients.
When we talk about peripheral artery disease, especially in huge patient populations, diabetes, etc., what you guys are proposing is really a game changer. Tell us a little bit about the potential marketplace for your treatment.
Yeah, so let me cover a little statistics with you in terms of the disease. So there are about 12 million people in the U.S., just in the U.S., that have what's called peripheral arterial disease. And peripheral arterial disease is a disease, an atherosclerosis-driven disease, just like the atherosclerosis that affects the heart and causes coronary artery disease. So peripheral arterial disease, atherosclerosis, slowly but surely closes off the arteries in the periphery, mostly in the legs. So about 12 million patients in the U.S. have this disease. It's estimated that the most severe form, which is called critical limb ischemia, about 10% of those patients have critical limb ischemia, so about 1.2 million. And of those, there's another third of those patients, so about 400,000 patients, have what are called no-option critical limb ischemia. The traditional way of treating these patients is to revascularize them, surgically revascularize them, either endovascular with the placement of a stent or an atherectomy to sort of rotor-rooter out the plaque in the artery. But eventually these patients become so compromised that they're no longer able to tolerate a surgical procedure, hence they become no-option CLI patients. So for about 400,000 patients in the U.S., they have no good treatment options other than waiting until they die or waiting for an amputation. So we feel like, based on the phase 2 data that we've shown, that we can take these patients who have no good treatment options today, no good surgical treatment options, and give them our regenerative therapy, a cellular therapy called Ixmilus LT, and really turn back the clock on their disease, help open up the arteries in their lower extremities, and also reduce the inflammation. As you may know, atherosclerosis is an inflammatory-driven disease, and so our therapy reduces the inflammation and then helps promote the development of blood flow in the lower extremities.
One of the things I'm thinking as an investor is, how is this personalized medical approach going to be able to capture the market effectively and efficiently? Can you walk us through that process?
I can. So let me walk you through our therapeutic process. It starts in the physician's office. So that's an important thing to note, because this is not in the hospital. Even though these patients are very sick, I think we all know that being in the hospital is probably some of the most expensive ways to treat patients. This happens in the physician's office. Patient comes in, lays down on the table. A small bone marrow aspirate is taken from that patient. It's a 15-minute outpatient procedure, and the aspirate itself is small. As I mentioned, it's about 50 mLs or about 3 tablespoons. That is put into the bag. The bag is put in a box, and it's shipped to our facility in Ann Arbor, Michigan. There we process it over the course of about 12 days. At the end of 12 days, we pull that product out. It's now a product called Ixmilus LT. We wash it, put it back into a bag, ship it to the physician's office, and the physician then, in the physician's office again, injects the cells, the product, into the patient's lower extremities, so into the muscles of the lower leg. So that's about a 15 to 20 minute procedure as well. And again, a couple of things to highlight. It's in the office, it's 15 to 20 minutes at the beginning of a 2-week period and 15 to 20 minutes at the end of a 2-week period. And then the patient doesn't have to come back for further treatment. So in terms of, cost, much lower cost, and as well, it's a fairly simple procedure when you actually break it down.
Tim, in layman's terms, as much as possible, tell us what some of the scientific data has shown us from your previous studies.
Yeah, so what we've seen in our previous studies is that our product has the ability to significantly reduce the inflammatory response that's present in this severe chronic cardiovascular disease. One of the most damaging conditions that we as humans face is runaway inflammation. And our product has the ability to significantly change that paradigm within the body to turn off the inflammatory response. And once you can promote that, or once you can turn off that inflammatory response, you can promote healing. The second thing that our product has been able to show is that we can actually help grow new blood vessels. So angiogenesis is the process or the term that's used to describe the growing of new blood vessels. And so we see in our product the ability to grow new blood vessels. So the combination of turning off the inflammatory response, promoting the conditions for healing, and then actually growing new blood vessels are really the two major things that we see with our product.
Give us a history of this. How did you find this treatment? How did it end up as a publicly traded company?
It's a long and twisty road that we've had. So the company was actually founded more than 22 years ago. It spun out of the University of Michigan as a device company. The device that we're using to manufacture in a centralized GMP manufacturing manner was actually spun out of the University of Michigan 22 years ago. Over the course of the past 22 years now, we've developed our own intellectual property. So we own all the rights to our product. But over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, we changed the course of the company from being a device company to taking that device and using it to manufacture this very novel, this very regenerative cell therapy product. And so we focused on severe chronic cardiovascular diseases for the last 5 or 6 years, and we've made tremendous progress going from phase 1 studies now to starting our phase 3 study and bringing this therapy much closer to the promise of actually having patients experience this and benefit from it.
As you're doing presentations at these various conferences, talking to investors in the investment community, there's got to be a slide or a piece of the presentation that you say to yourself, I really hope they're paying attention to this. This is what I really want them to take away. What is that?
So I think the thing that we like to talk about a lot is the fact that we are very close to having our product show phase 3 results, so show good clinical phase 3 results and be able to file a BLA for approval by FDA here in the US. There aren't many biotech companies that get into phase 3. There aren't hardly any cell therapy companies, regenerative medicine companies that get into phase 3. And we are a phase 3 company with a product that has shown very good results in a phase 2 study and serving a very large patient population where there is a very high unmet need. So we feel like we're at the right place at the right time with the right product.
Thanks so much, Tim.
Thank you.